and let us all do we can to build a better future.
I love it. I'm absolutely loving seeing the Democrats being called out. Jose Vega, I think you inspired so many other people, and it is beautiful. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the fact that Kamala Harris, and yes, even Mama Bear Nancy Pelosi, are being called out by pro-Palestinian protesters. Now, as we have covered on the show, a lot of people have been interrupting Joe Biden's events, be it at churches or at union gatherings or at regular town halls. People, protesters who are upset with the ongoing death toll that's happening in Gaza. We're now getting past 25,000. I hate to say this, but I think we're going to get to the number 30,000 very soon of dead men, women, and children. There's a genocide taking place in Gaza, okay? This isn't open for discussion. So Kamala Harris gets interrupted, but even Nancy, Mama Bear Nancy has something to say, because remember how I covered on yesterday's show how Nancy Pelosi said that these protesters should be investigated? What do you mean? Why should they be investigated? Because apparently, according to Nancy, she says that the FBI should look into them because they could potentially be Russian plants. So let's talk about this, because don't forget this too, folks. Even Nancy is telling these protesters that are in front of her house to go back to China like an atypical old lady. You know, she's in her 80s, you know, she's gonna be like, go back to China. But a beginning is a very delicate time. So let's bring this up from yesterday's show. Let's go ahead and bring this up, where Nancy talks about the pro-Palestinian protesters.
They're in front of my house all the time. So I have a feeling for what feelings they have. But we have to think about what we're doing. And what we have to do is try to stop the suffering in Gaza. This is women and children, people who don't have a place to go. So let's address that. But for them to call for a ceasefire is Mr. Putin's message.
So I guess Putin doesn't want war, and he wants there to be peace. You know, even when Trump to his credit, during that infamous CNN town hall with Kathleen, I forgot her last name now. Okay, Kathleen Collins. There you go. I think that's her name. Well, I forgot her. You know, he said, I want people to stop dying, right? I want people to stop dying in the war between Russia and Ukraine. And that was deemed controversial because that's going to help Putin out too. Peace will help Putin. People not dying is going to help Putin. And so this is what this is what failure of U.S. leadership looks like.
Mr. Putin's message. Make no mistake, this is directly connected to what he would like to see. Same thing with Ukraine. It's about Putin's message. I think some of these protesters are spontaneous and organic and sincere. Some, I think, are connected to Russia. And I say that having looked at this for a long time now. As you know,
think some of these protests are Russian plants?
I say they're plants.
And CNN, that's why I'm so glad people don't respect you as a network. You're going to ask that dumb question, the Russiagate thing. It's the reason why we're in Ukraine in the first place, because you have so many people triggered by Russiagate and Putin and Trump.
I think some financing should be investigated. And I want to ask the FBI to investigate that. But apart from that, let's just say it's all spontaneous and sincere. Let's say it's all spontaneous and sincere. Young people care about the right to choose. They care about LGBTQ issues.
Now, Nancy's going to be mentioning a whole bunch of other issues too. Now, look, here's what the number one issue is going to be. I get it. You should be proud of who you are, the generation you're part of, how you worship. You be proud of who you are. But listen, at the end of the day, we're all human. Wipe away all our identity. Wipe away all of that stuff. We're all human. And the one thing that's universal amongst every generation, amongst all groups who worship or don't worship, amongst anyone across the political spectrum, is the American people's wallets are hurting. Okay, the economy is going to be the number one issue. Yet somehow we have money for endless wars, Nancy. People are starving in this country. People are skipping meals. People are skipping their medicine. People are wondering what bills to pay. The economy is going to be the front and center issue, not identity politics. And this isn't dismissing people's feelings. Well, we're all human. And when your wallet's feeling light and you can't buy anything, it doesn't matter where you stand because you're realizing that you got to survive. And this economy, currently, people can't survive.
They care about preserving the planet. They care about gun violence prevention. That's what they tell us. They care about our democracy and the freedoms that are contained in some of what I said. So they're going to have to make a decision, staying home to enable or to agonize, organize, not agonize, but organize.
Agonize. No. So organize around us. Don't stress us out. So what Nancy's saying to all the young people, Gen Z, listen to me. Listen. Okay? Look, you guys got to also pass this on to the next generation. When you hear politicians talk like this, let me just tell you what they're saying to you. Vote for us or we're going to make your lives miserable. Vote for us and we'll give you just some crumbs. Vote for us and we'll put you back to sleep. If you don't support us, we're going to guilt you. We're going to say you're part of the problem. Gen Z and everyone else across the spectrum. What you heard here from Nancy is she wants you to organize around the Democrats, but don't antagonize. Stop asking them for things because they're not going to deliver. Okay? Millennials, Gen Xers, boomers, we've learned this lesson the hard way. And I know we all got our differences. I'm not asking us to be friends or rainbows and sunshines, but we got to give the next generation a heads up because people like Nancy are not letting go of power. She's had her time in the sun, but she doesn't want to let go. But organize, don't antagonize. Let's listen to that one more time.
In some of what I said. So they're going to have to make a decision, staying home to enable or to agonize, organize, not agonize, but organize and get out there and get the job. I have every confidence that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be president, vice president of the United States.
Well, I don't know because young people are pretty ticked off because here's what's happening to Kamala.
Let me say, in a real democracy, everyone has
See? And the audience cheers. The audience cheers because, well, that's their marching order. So many people are still asleep.
And I was saying, we all want this conflict to end.
And you're the vice president, and Joe Biden's the president. You do realize you're a global superpower, and that you can weigh in on things.
As possible. And the president and I are working on that every single day. So back to what we were discussing. We are looking at a situation.
Yep, and look, the audience. So many of these people, especially probably during the Trump years, were thinking they were part of the resistance. You know, all the people in the crowd that are cheering for Kamala and Biden. All these people are thinking like, oh, yeah, we're part of the resistance to stop Trump and fascism. Well, hold on. You have people here calling to stop a horrific war, and yet everyone's telling them to shut up. This is what I mean whenever you hear somebody say, if I was alive during the Civil War era, I would have helped the slaves escape. If you ever hear anyone say, if I was alive in Europe during the Second World War, I would have helped hide the Jews. I would have done that. That's a big red flag because the answer is no. There's no proof that you would have done that. Now, I don't know. No, anyone that says that is delusional. Don't believe them. Because they would be one of the good ones. No, you wouldn't. No, you're not.
Where there are...
And so let's get to the delicious main course. Shout out to Sabrina, Sabby Sabs, who's doing fantastic work. Nancy Pelosi is now telling protesters to go back to China. A beautiful 24 seconds. Nancy Pelosi, go back to China.
Most of your constituents want beside you. Stop.
Get away from my house, you poor people. How dare you? How dare you? I got to do some insider trading. That's a terrible Nancy Pelosi impression. Good morning. A Sunday morning. You know what? Better yet. Indy, I'm going to use this, man. Shout out to INN, because this is a perfect way to describe Nancy when she sees the protesters.
Who are these people?
Stop the genocide. Stop the Holocaust.
The Democrats want the ceasefire. The Democrats want the ceasefire.
What is it?
So you may not have heard it, but she says, go back to China where your headquarters is at. She says it right there. One more time. Just as the door's going to close.
The ceasefire.
What is it?
The Democrats
Go back to China. One more time.
want the ceasefire.
What is it?
The Democrats want the ceasefire.
Oh, Nancy Pelosi shouts racist remarks at protesters. Go back to China. Hashtag Nancy. Are you canceled? Former House Speaker Nancy Mama Bear Pelosi had some strong words for protesters inside of her home as videos of the incident revealed. Go back to China where your headquarters is, Pelosi is seen shouting as she walks from her garage to her vehicle, aggressively pointing at protesters before waving them off. The protesters, a group of women, are said to be the same women who have protested outside Pelosi's home for nearly 20 years. That's dedication. That is pure dedication. Pelosi recently suggested that pro-Palestinian protesters were connected to, you guessed it, Russia. There you go. So, of course, Florida man. Thank you, Florida man, for weighing in on this. What a hypocrite. Called Trump racist for saying COVID was a Chinese origin. Now she's calling protesters Chinese plants. You can't make this up. So there you go. And of course, hey, look, Pelosi, go back to China where your headquarters is. I remember when Pelosi told everyone, come on down to Chinatown amid the outbreak that was taking place. Pelosi, again, actually visited China a little more than a year ago, and her presence there was said to inflame tensions between China and Taiwan. Remember that when she did that? And of course, here's an article from Politico, right? Pelosi clarifies after suggesting Russia links to some pro-ceasefire protests. So former Nancy Pelosi is clarifying her comments from a Sunday TV interview when she suggested an investigation was needed into the connections between pro-ceasefire protesters and Russia influence. The California Democrat told CNN that some protesters calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Gaza war are spontaneous and organic and sincere. Some, I think, are connected to Russia. So we all heard that quote. Her office then further explained those comments Monday, saying she supported Americans' right to a peaceful protest. Hey, folks, let's have democracy in the chat. Type 3 if you think you believe Nancy Pelosi believes in your right to do peaceful protest. Type 4, no. She's going to probably do a phone call to the FBI regardless and start looking into American citizens. So there you go. And of course, the article then talks about how Russia interfered in the 2016 election, yada, 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 cyber attacks, everything else were carried out on the DNC, even though it's been revealed that the Democrats had a piss poor candidate. So that's it. Mama Bear Nancy Pelosi telling everyone, if you protest her, you just better go back to China.
The Democrats want the ceasefire.
What is it?
The Democrats
Go back to China where your headquarters is. That is the former Speaker of the House. That is somebody who AOC respects and gave us up for. That's Mama Bear Nancy Pelosi. How did this happen? How did it come to this? These are the people that are supposed to represent us. But the protests are growing in strength. And I'm proud to say later on this month, in February, we are going to have Jose Vega back on the show. And we're looking forward to speaking with him, especially in regards to what he probably set off in regards towards U.S. citizens calling out and challenging their politicians. no matter where they stand politically, be they Democrat or Republican. And more people need to call out these politicians. There's a genocide happening. There are needless wars taking place, all the while U.S. citizens are struggling day in and day out just to get by. These politicians are not royalty. They are public servants. They work for us. And it's our social responsibility to remind them of that.